On today's episode of Phinside the NFL, we're live down here for training camp as we get prepared for the Miami Dolphins to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars tomorrow in joint practice and then play their preseason week 3 game this weekend. We got a lot to talk about as Tua is not as sharp as he has been all preseason so far. The defense clearly won the day, and Darren Waller has been activated off PUP. Do me the favor as you come through, smash that like button. If you're new, go ahead and subscribe. And as always, let's get into this one.
Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Field down the near side, man open. Touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. He's got it for a touchdown! Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go!
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? We are back here for another one, and we got a lot to talk about today. Obviously, we're going to talk about Darren Waller being activated off PUP, what we can maybe expect from that. Also, we are going to dive deep into practice. We'll go over what Wingfield saw, what the Herald saw, and what the Sun Sentinel saw, and I'll add in what I saw as well. I appreciate each and every one of you coming through the chat. Well over 100 of you already live in the chat. So again, do me that favor, smash the like button, subscribe if you are new. Shout out to the homie Austin in the chat. Listen, I know the haters are out in troves. It's all good, man. You know, I'm sitting here hanging out with my buddies, you know, Dougley, his dad, Sean. We're kicking it. We went to training camp today, had a stadium tour. Man, I'm living my best life. So if people want to sit there and talk about me on Twitter, knock themselves out, because the fact of the matter is, these people are talking, and the reason why they're talking is because of jealousy, man. You know, doing it for how many years, and you only have 40 or 50 people watching while you're live. Okay, so keep talking about me. That's why you are where you are. So I appreciate all of you guys coming through. We got a lot to get into today. Let's not waste much time. I see the homie Knight comes through here, and he says, did Cam finally find his coconuts? And I guess he's talking about Cam Smith. I mean, hey, listen, you know, what can you say? Cam Smith had a really good span of 3 plays last week. The kind of play we've been waiting to see from him since he was drafted by the Miami Dolphins. And if we get more of that on a more consistent basis, maybe we got something there. I mean, they're going to give him every opportunity possible, because the fact of the matter is, we already know this, Greer doesn't like to give up on his draft picks. So we're going to see what happens. All right. So Cam Smith is definitely one of the players this week that we'll probably all be keeping our eye on, because he's a guy who's fighting for a roster spot, right? You know, Ethan Bonner's looked better. Kendall Sheffield, you know, the staff seems to be a little bit high on him. So, you know, and then add in obviously Storm Duck, Jack Jones, Mike Hilton. You know, it's an uphill battle for Cam Smith, but his draft status is what's keeping him afloat right now. And now we're at the point where he's got to back it up with play. So we'll see what Cam Smith does. We'll see what Cam Smith does. You know, honestly, where I'm at right now, not expecting a ton. And if he gives me any more than that, then I guess I'll just be pleasantly surprised. That's all that I care about. Let's see what Cam Smith shows us this weekend. And hey, he's someone I'll be watching. obviously enjoying practice tomorrow. So funny enough, he was only about what? I want to say 6 or 8 feet away from me and Dudley today, signing autographs and stuff. So let's hope those autographs he signed are worth something someday, huh? Shout out to Knight. He also donated a Phinside, the NFL membership. Appreciate you for growing the Phinside fam. Knight. Hallie D. Barry says, going to Thursday Night Football, week 3. Can't wait. Man, that's the Jets game. What's that? The Jets or the Bills game, right? I know they're going to be debuting those new alternate jerseys. They're going to be debuting those against the Jets. So, yeah, it's the Bills game. So I know against the Jets in primetime, they'll be debuting those new jerseys that we're actually, we're not that far away. I think we're 6 or 8 days away from the unveiling. So, appreciate y'all for coming through. Shout out to Franklin Lejeune. He gifted a Phinside, the NFL membership. I appreciate that as well, my friend. Thank you for helping build the Phinside fam. When I do get back to home base, on Friday and this weekend, obviously I'll be live reacting to the game against Jacksonville, but I'll also will be dropping a 3 takes for the patrons and the channel members. All right. So, and yep, here's the deal. We're going to see Xavien Howard week 1. He's going to be a Colt. And what's really interesting to me is, I know he's been out of the league for 2 years. What do they really expect? I'm wondering if they're doing it more for an intel purpose rather than a performance purpose. I don't know. But we'll see. I mean, because what can you really expect from him coming off? John says, heading to camp tomorrow. Hopefully we come out ready and energetic. Hopefully we see you, bro. Shout out to a bunch of people came up and said hi today. So I appreciate all of you that came up and said hi today. Hopefully, if you have a chance, come see me tomorrow. Andre says, reason we need your opinion. Are you concerned about the starting offense? It sounds like the defense will be tough and gritty. I'm really only concerned about the offensive line. And it's twofold. Are the starters going to stay healthy? And how is the depth going to look? Because right now, listen, I've heard some stuff about Austin Jackson that I'm not really thrilled about. And we know he's hurt more than Tua. Let's be real here. So can the starter stay healthy? Aaron Brewer was wearing the orange jersey today. I expect a lot out of him. I think Jonas Savaianaya, he'll be fine. He'll be fine when we get to the nitty gritty. By midseason, I expect him to be fine. I think Patrick Paul looks like he's going to be a serious force. James Daniels looks good. It's really, can Austin Jackson stay healthy? And then if he can't stay healthy, how is the depth behind him? Yeah. Knight, I was down there today. Austin Jackson had a boot on his foot. So, listen, and I know Larry Borum had his best showing probably so far as a Dolphin last weekend, but what are we really expecting there? I mean, it's just Keon Smith looks like a disaster because they've shifted him all around, and now he's looked like he's regressed even further. I never even thought he was really that great to begin with. Listen, I agree with you, Dylan Medina. I think this is you got Proctor and others. This is a good draft for offensive linemen, 110%. So, that's kind of why I wanted Armand Membo. Now, obviously, I was pushing Kenneth Grant and the Will Johnson narratives, but the reason why I also was pushing an Armand Membo narrative until the combine happened and it was evident we were not going to get him, right? I wanted that replacement, kick him at right guard, and then if Austin goes down, kick him back out, right? So, I don't know. I think a lot hinges. We say this almost every year on this channel. This team will only go as far as the offensive line takes them. Right? So, and I see it in the chat, still can't believe we restructured Austin's contract. Now it's tough to get off him next year. Now they're basically stuck. And I've told you guys that if you're not going to restructure Tua, why would you restructure the guy that's hurt more than him? It makes zero sense, right? It makes zero sense at all. So we'll see how it goes. But I don't know. I would not have restructured him. It wouldn't have happened. Knight, I see you in the chat. You're talking about Francis Mauigoa, the tackle from the University of Miami. He's an absolute stud, man. I think him and Proctor will probably be the first two tackles off the board as we're sitting here right now. Finn's Rule says, any chance Ewers takes over QB2? Listen, we're going to get into the details here. Zach Wilson had some good throws today. I was actually shocked. I mean, challenging windows, throwing with good timing and anticipation. There were two throws where I was like, wow, like I probably saw Zach Wilson's two best throws as a Dolphin today. There were some good throws he had today. And I hope it clicks. I hope the hamster gets back on the wheel up there. But, listen, I'm not holding my breath. Well, we'll see what happens. So, but Zach had a few throws today where even I was a little wowed. So, challenging windows, throwing with timing and anticipation, good stuff from him. So, let's go ahead. Let's get into everything from today. So the Miami Dolphins, they went ahead and they brought Darren Waller off the PUP list. And today that was one of their first moves. And he didn't really do any on-field work. He was just on the sideline, but he had his pads on. Now, this is kind of a sticky situation you're getting into right now because today was obviously inter-squad practice, but tomorrow you got joint practice, and I do not see them throwing Darren Waller out there. In fact, they've already talked about how they don't want to start him off in a joint practice situation. So I believe the joint practice tomorrow is like the last publicly open practice of training camp. And I expect them to start getting their work in with Darren Waller when none of us are there. I think that's when you'll start seeing, well, you won't be able to see it, but that's when you'll start hearing and seeing that Darren Waller is getting acclimated to the offense. He's getting inserted, et cetera, et cetera. So that's when I expect Darren Waller to get ramped up behind the scenes, basically, in close practices. So, now expectations. I don't know if you guys saw it, but Drew Rosenhaus was on Josh Moser's weekly segment, and he basically said to the effect, like, no disrespect to all the other tight ends in the room, but Darren Waller's ready to go. He's ready to ball. We'll see how it works out. You know what I mean? Listen, I've talked about this 2 training camps ago when it was his final year with the Giants. Art Stapleton, who covers the Giants, he said, up until they got Malik Neighbors in New York, he said that was and he had covered the team for over 20 years. So we're talking OBJ, Victor Cruz, all of them. He said that was the most dominant camp performance he had ever seen from a player until Malik Neighbors arrived. So give me 70% of that. Give me 75% of that, and we're good. We're good. That's all we need. Now, I know people are liking what they're seeing from Tanner Conner right now. I got no faith in Tanner Conner. I mean, we see the traits, we see the ability, but he's another one of those guys that when the lights shine the brightest, he kind of goes into the fetal position a little bit there. So, or he gets hurt. So, I don't even know. You need Darren Waller to produce because the rest of them, from Rucci to Connor to Julian Hill, I don't think you are going to get Jonnu production by committee. So now, another player I will be watching closely this weekend is obviously Hayden Rucci. I thought Hayden Rucci had a really strong week 2 of the preseason. He was clearing lanes and really, really finishing off his blocks. I like what we saw from Hayden Rucci, and I think he has a little bit more upside as a pass catcher than a guy like Julian Hill does. But, it was a telltale sign last weekend for the preseason game when a lot of the starters were in street clothes, and that included Julian Hill. So that pretty much tells you Julian Hill is locked in to be tight end 1. So this is the hand we've been dealt. Let's see what they can do. Shout out to Paulie King, says he officially got his tickets to the Ravens Thursday night game. Have fun, man. And I hope you get to see as exciting as a game as the Dolphins put on in 2022 against the Ravens, man. All right, let's get into training camp today. We'll go over some of the things that Travis, the Herald, and the Sun Sentinel saw, and then I'll add my own 2 cents from what I saw at camp today. So let's start off with. So Travis starts off here, and he says, first play of team is a near Jack Jones pick, trying a deep route to the sideline to Waddle. Jones stayed in phase and got under to his throw. Then it's Elijah Campbell picks off Zach Wilson. He had Taj Washington about 25 yards down the middle, coming back to the ball, but the pass is high off Taj's hands, and Elijah Campbell collected the rebound. And then Ewers had an explosive to Henning on a deep corner. Henning got a step, and Quinn drops the Rainmaker right in the bucket. Tua, catch, rock, throw completion to Waddle, but cool moment between Tua and Jack Jones. Looked like Jack took a chance coming off of his responsibility and was a step away from getting to the football. After the play goes up to Tua with the "I was this close" gesture, Tua slaps his helmet and both players return to the huddle. Tua all day to throw, completes to Tanner Connor. Protection was super solid, especially Larry Borum, who anchored on Robinson in an ISO rep. And then Zach, beautiful rhythm throw on the in-cut to Eskridge. Let it go before D. Clear crossed his face. On the spot, drop defender. Ball finds him right in stride. Ball goes away from Cam Smith in coverage, but he's got up in Taj's face and kept him on the line of scrimmage. Then he chases the ball across the field and puts a shoulder on Shampklin after he made the catch. Weaver talked about the physicality being a next step for Cam. He's been showing it since the week in Detroit. Matt Judon making plays. He split the tight end and tackle for a sack on Zach Wilson. Wilson continues the rep and throws a nice ball to Taj Washington. But man, the way Judon pried open the elevator door on those 2 blockers. We've talked about his rip move, strong upper body. Then it's Judon again. This time straight speed around the corner, back-to-back sacks for the newest Dolphin. Jalen Wright with a slashing run into the second level, took it right behind Daniels, and Brewer with a good press and cutback at the line of scrimmage. Jordan Phillips kept his chest clean with a good punch, rides the way on a wide right run and cuts it down after a gain of 2. Kept James Daniels at bay. 3rd and 5, Tua comes off his first look, goes back side and pumps to a target at the sticks, but Jack Jones was underneath it, so Tua throws it over everyone. Zach Wilson has back-to-back completions to Izakama, totaling about 30 yards. Good throws over the middle on time. Takes the ball down to the 5. Elijah Campbell fit a second and goal run from the 4 to Ollie Gordon behind the line of scrimmage for a loss of 2. And then Jason Marshall stayed in phase on a Tua shot up to Waddle in the end zone and broke it up. Waddle had a chance, but Marshall punched it through the hands and knocked it away. Bradley Chubb sets a hard edge to collision Jalen Wright after a gain of about 2. They could have kicked him. If they could have kicked him out, Paul and Savaianaya had driven the interior off the ball, but Chubb gets over the top of the block to stack it up. Tua, he had Nick Westbrook Akine in the corner of the end zone, and the ball finds his hands, but Jack Jones punched the hands, and the ball popped up straight and was picked off by the nearest defender. So Travis obviously goes on to say he didn't know who it was, and he's right. The VIP tent got right in the way of that pick, but we can go ahead and confirm that it was Storm Duck who got the interception on the play. So good stuff. So let me give you my thoughts on a few of these things. All right. So the Waddle play that he brought up there. All right. That was the placement from Tua on that Waddle throw that Jason Marshall broke up was absolutely really phenomenal. He had a chance to go over top of Jason Marshall and make the catch, but he couldn't come down with it. It was a tough rep. Jason Marshall was really sticky coverage. It was good stuff. I mean, I've said this before. I think I'm going to be wrong on Jason Marshall. I think he's going to be really good. I like what I saw out of the slot last week. He keeps stacking days, and Jason Marshall, they might have something, and he's got to stack those days because, like I said, he doesn't offer you much on special teams. Like, you're not going to send him down the field as a gunner. But if he can contribute from a rotational standpoint out of those corner spots, especially if he adds the nickel to his repertoire, you got something there to work off of. So Jason Marshall, that was a really, really good play. And it was a really good ball from Tua. Would have loved to see Waddle come down with that throw, but I mean, hey, good coverage. So I'm not going to knock him, to the end of the earth here. Now, Quinn Ewers. Now, Travis mentioned he had the explosive to AJ Henning. Quinn Ewers didn't get very much work today from what we saw. Now, when we arrived, the first portion of the practice has already taken place indoors. So I can't speak on what work Ewers got in while they were indoors, but I can speak of while we were outdoors, and he didn't get a ton of work. The most work he got was when the three quarterbacks went off on their own and were just throwing balls. And speaking of, that is where we had our first Tyreek Hill sighting. Tyreek Hill was catching balls in street clothes, but with gloves on from the quarterbacks and then throwing them back. And the reason we all knew it was Tyreek was because we saw him throwing the ball back with his left hand. So, but yeah, and Tyreek and Tua had a little bit of a powwow. So yeah, but wish I could have saw a little bit more from Ewers. Hopefully tomorrow we get to see a little bit more from Ewers. All right. So let's get into what the Sun Sentinel had to say about today. Judon, it was his practice debut with the Dolphins. He was seen wearing number 8. Judon did have an exceptional day. He had back-to-back plays where he beat a tackle for a practice sack. One of them would have gone for a strip sack. He also had a strong rep in pass coverage and team drills. Chop Robinson had himself a day. He had back-to-back plays with a sack and then a tip ball on a shallow throw to the outside. Darren Waller, it was his first practice with his new team after coming out of retirement and coming off the pup, but he did not participate in drills. Aaron Brewer had the orange jersey. The first play of 11-11 action, Tagovailoa underthrew a deep out to Jalen Waddle. Jack Jones nearly intercepted it, but Waddle broke it up from behind. The throw of the day was by Quinn Ewers to AJ Henning on a deep corner, beating John Sanders on the play. Derek McClendon had a play where he got to Zach Wilson. With the play allowed to continue, Wilson threw high to a target who had it ricochet off his hands and end up in Elijah Campbell's hands. Jason Marshall Jr. had an impressive pass breakup against Waddle in the end zone. On a pass, Tagovailoa lofted a bit under duress. Miami coaches like how physical Marshall plays down by the goal line. Shortly thereafter, Tagovailoa was intercepted on a throw to Nick Westbrook-Akine. The view of the play was obstructed, but it was Storm Duck who came down with the pass. McClendon left tackle Jalen McKenzie in the dust with an outside-in move on one-on-ones. Patrick Paul was seen locking up Chubb on a reb. Muhammad Kamara had a pass rush win off the edge. Ben Stilley had a great pass back down at the line of scrimmage in a red zone period. Bradley Chubb set the edge nicely, turning on an outside run inside to the rest of the defenders. Matthew Butler appeared to get through for a sack in a situational drill, but the play was allowed to proceed for a pitch and catch that got Miami's offense inside the 10-yard line. Wilson had a fumbled exchange on a handoff with Ollie Gordon. Ewers had mishandled the snap. Kenneth Grant was not seen with the rest of the defensive linemen at Wednesday's practice. Zeke Biggers appeared to hurt his right arm, but continued to practice with his arm dangling. Benito Jones and Grayson Murphy also had plays where they appeared either slow to get up or hobbled, but they were fine taking snaps later. Tyreek Hill, like I had mentioned to you, he was seen working on the sideline, not doing much. He caught passes on the side of drills. Alec Ingold and Kamara have progressed through concussion protocol to rid themselves of the red jersey. Daquan Jackson was in a red jersey Wednesday. Achan, Jackson, Davis, Sheffield, Bonner, Dante Trader, Andrew Meyer, Anderson West, Baron Matos did all not practice today. Austin Jackson, like I mentioned to you, had a boot on his left foot, and Meyer had a brace on his elbow. Keon Smith was with the team at the start of practice, but he did not do any team drills. Stock up they have here. Jack Jones and Jason Marshall coming off along strong at the right time between Wednesday's practice and their efforts in the preseason game at Detroit. This preseason cornerback competition will soon conclude for a unit in need of players to step up. Jones and Marshall are hot during an ideal juncture of camp with roster cuts coming on Tuesday. Stock down. Tagovailoa had a down day, but that probably means he'll have a bounce-back effort against an opponent when he faces the Jags at Dolphins headquarters Thursday. Wilson also had a rough outing. Also of note, it's peculiar how nickel cornerback Mike Hilton barely sees any practice reps, and when he does, it comes on the lower units. That said, defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver said him sitting out Saturday's exhibition was because the team knows what they have in him. So, a few things here. Number one, Ollie Gordon. What was interesting about Ollie Gordon today was, did you see that, Doug? Ollie Gordon was getting reps with the ones? Yeah, Ollie Gordon was getting reps with the ones today. So that's an interesting little bit of a development. He's moving up the depth chart. I mean, and Jalen Wright's not just, he's not making the most of the opportunities that he's being given right now. That's literally where we're at right now. It looks like Jalen Wright doesn't look as decisive as he was last year. It looks like his vision has regressed. You see the hesitation, you know? By the way, Scotty Joe says, tell DDW to hydrate. He says, don't worry, Scotty. He's good, he says. So Jalen Wright's just not making the most of his opportunities right now. That's where we're at right now. While Ollie Gordon is making the most of his opportunities right now. So, you know, Jalen Wright's going to have a strong third preseason game, because if he starts carrying over this play into the regular season, Ollie's going to leap him, and Ollie's probably going to leap him pretty quickly. So, wish we were seeing better play from Jalen Wright. I had high hopes for him coming into this season. You know, the work I had heard he was putting in the offseason, I thought we were really going to see a leap in Jalen Wright's game, and we just haven't seen it yet. So, we need him to be better right now. There's no doubt about it. And for all of you wondering, yes, Matthew Judon had his orange sleeves on. All right. I'm going to tell you this right now. Judon looks good. If you guys would have saw him today, or if you did see him today and you had previously hated on that edition, I don't think you are anymore. He looked good today, Judon. He's making plays, making an impact right off the rip. All right, so let's get into what the Herald saw today. So here we go. The Dolphins, they activated Darren Waller off the physically unable to perform list on Wednesday morning. It gives him 2.5 weeks to practice before the September season opener at Indianapolis. So Waller's involvement mostly was limited to stretching and taking mental reps. He did not partake in 11-11 drills. His agent, Rosna, said on WSVN that Waller will be ready to contribute in the season opener. Offensive coordinator Frank Smith, who coached Waller with the Raiders, believes he can help quickly. Quote, my experience with him, the mental size is extreme strength of his. So Frank Smith thinks he's going to be able to contribute real quick. So Ashton Davis, he was working with trainers. His left foot is now out of a boot. He could return sooner than originally thought. Andrew Meyer, who had played very well early in camp, is wearing a brace on his left elbow. He's out. Ingold and Kamara are no longer wearing red non-contact jerseys, but Daquan Jackson was wearing one today. Matthew Judon wearing number 8. That was formerly Alexander Madison's jersey, who's now out for the season after sustaining a neck injury in practice. So, Tyreek Hill, he was doing work on the sideline, obviously. Aaron Brewer, he was good today. Now 11-11 drills. On the first play, cornerback Jack Jones nearly intercepted a Tua Tagovailoa pass, but Waddle broke it up. Tagovailoa connected on a pass with Ollie Gordon, who had 80 catches for 585 yards and 4 touchdowns in 3 seasons at Oklahoma. But later in the day, Gordon dropped a screen pass from Zach Wilson. Yes, you read that correctly. Zach Wilson actually completed a screen pass, but the receiver let him down this time. Derek McClendon, who would have had a sack in a real game, but the play continued, and Elijah Campbell picked off Zach Wilson on a high throw that was tipped by intended receiver Taj Washington. Wilson has had 5 interceptions in 18 training camp practices and several near interceptions. Cornerback Cornell Armstrong broke up a Quinn Ewers pass, but Ewers then hit A.J. Henning on a 50-yard bomb, beating John Sanders. Jalen Wright was stuffed, no gain, but he had a nice inside run behind the first-team offensive line. Trainers are examining the right hand of Zeke Biggers. Wilson hit D. Eskridge for 20 yards on a nifty throw. Cam Smith was in coverage. Moments later, Wilson connected with Taj Washington for 15 yards. Tagovailoa connected on a pass to Connor, who was making a case for a roster spot, but Tagovailoa's accuracy was off on 3 consecutive passes, which is unusual for him. Nick Westbrook-Akini dropped a bubble screen pass. Judon had 2 consecutive sacks on Wilson, including one that would have been a strip sack in a game. It was an impressive first day for the Miami's newest edge rusher. Chop Robinson had a near sack on one play, then deflected a Wilson screen pass at the line of scrimmage. Armstrong broke up a Ewers pass intended for Eric Ezukanma. Jalen Phillips had a near sack after overpowering Jalen Wright, and then again got heavy pressure on Tagovailoa on the next play when he snuck around right tackle Larry Borum, who's filling in for Austin Jackson. Jordan Phillips, who had some good moments over the past 2 weeks, limited Wright to a 2-yard gain. Wilson connected with Ezukanma on 2 consecutive intermediate throws. Jack Jones had good coverage on a red zone play, forcing Tagovailoa to throw the ball away. Elijah Campbell stopped Gordon at the line of scrimmage on a run at the 4-yard line. Matthew Butler sacked Wilson, and Jason Marshall Jr. broke up a Tagovailoa to Waddle pass in the end zone. Marshall has made good progress as he learns to play the slot. Dolphins say the former Florida Gator standout is now able to play boundary and inside cornerback. Now, for Tua Tagovailoa, this was Tagovailoa's worst day of preseason practices, marked by uncharacteristic inaccuracy. Tagovailoa, who overall had a good training camp, threw 3 interceptions in the joint practice with Chicago. Jack Jones, who had a near interception of Tagovailoa pass earlier in the day, tipped a Tagovailoa end zone throw, resulting in an interception by Storm Duck. Ben Stilley deflected a Wilson pass at the line of scrimmage, and Keon Smith was paid poorly in 2 preseason games, left the field with a trainer. So now we're at the point where some of our depth, which isn't even good, is getting banged up and hurt right now. So, I mean, Keon Smith hurt, the only thing worse than having suspect depth on the offensive line is having that suspect depth on the offensive line start to get injured. They got to figure this out somehow, some way. I'm going to be honest with you. As I've watched the film over the past 2 preseason games, I'm more interested in what Addison West and Josh Preby and Braden Daniels can offer me in a depth role right now than Keon Smith or Larry Borum. That's where I'm at with this. I think we're wasting our time with some of these guys. I honestly think we are wasting our time, whether you want to say resources, whatever. We are wasting investment in Keon Smith. This could be going to someone else. and Penn nailed it. Now we need a backup for the backups. Now, Cornell Armstrong, tough sledding for him. Now, I know he can contribute on special teams, and that might be what saves him. But, now I know they mentioned in the article Tanner Connor making the 53. Would anyone be shocked if Tanner Connor made the 53? I know I wouldn't. I mean, I think we all got over that shock in 2022 when he made the 53, and none of us expected Tanner Connor to make the 53. I just hope Tanner Connor can be more than just a guy who's going to flash once in a while. So did I have a chance to check out the big fans? Yeah. I'm going to tell you, they got a nice little breeze rolling through up there now with those fans. So it was still hot. Like, it was still hot. We went down to the VIP tent and we met up with Daryl Bevel, and it was hot down there. Like, we all had Gatorades for sure. Shout out to Lisa, fan of the year, and her sister Amy. They're really pushing for my boy Richmond Webb to make the Hall of Fame. So me and Doug and a bunch of people did a little video for them on social media. So, hey, anything to help get the great Richmond Webb in the Hall of Fame, we're here. So, yeah. It's a good time, man. Tomorrow we're going to be live there for joint practice. I hope we get to see, a bounce back from Tua Tagovailoa. I think that was a good point that was made in the recap we just went over. Usually he tends to have bounce back days after struggling. So I'm hoping for a real good bounce back day. And it'll be even better for Tua to have a bounce back day against, an actual opponent and not our own defense. Now, Jordan Phillips, man, I've said this before. Benito Jones, I mean, you are on notice. You are on notice. This man is about to take your job by week 6 or week 8. Mark my words. Jordan Phillips is going to be the starting zero tech nose tackle by that time period. I can already see it happening. Yeah, Tanner Connor's going to make it. I mean, we're so weak at tight end right now. So it's just going to be interesting to see how many they keep. So, because my whole thing is I think we're carrying 6 receivers, but where are those extra bodies coming from? I thought Mike Boone had a nice run today. There was a nice run from Mike Boone that none of those articles mentioned. He looked quick and explosive from what I saw from Mike Boone on that run late in practice. But I hope I get to see more Ewers work. I was actually disappointed by us not getting to see a lot of Quinn Ewers today. Yes, Jedrick Wills is still available, but Jedrick Wills has pretty much told everyone that he's probably going to be taking the year off to recover his body. So Jedrick Wills probably isn't a legitimate option for the Miami Dolphins at this point. So, but yeah, it was a good time today, man. Good time. So, and I can't do it without all of you supporting me, supporting the channel. There's over 350 of you in the chat right now. Do me that favor, smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new. Knight says pre-June 1st, save $2 million versus the cap for AJ. Yeah. The fact that they restructured him and they're locked in for $16 million to a guy who stays healthy less than Tua Tagovailoa is crazy to me. Like, what are we expecting? So, and I remember him coming out, it was just a bone marrow. But he had actually had legitimate injury issues, and it's continued. So, I'm not the proponent. If Tua stays healthy this year and we don't have to worry about drafting another quarterback, tackle should be a top priority for this team. Tackle 110% should be a top priority for this team. So, we'll see how it works out. we will see how it works out. So, guys, do me the favor. I'm going to get out of here. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new. I'm going to be live after joint practice tomorrow to keep you guys updated with what happens tomorrow. If you are in the stands, come by, see me and Doug, say hi to us. And, I had some people take pictures with us and stuff today. So just make sure you come by, say hi. We'd love to see y'all. And we appreciate all y'all for your support. All right, guys, I will see you tomorrow. Until then, you already know what time it is. Fins up all day, every day. And as usual, we'll catch you guys all on the next one.